Have you ever found yourself sitting at the kitchen table sipping your coffee and wondering, where did I go wrong? Maybe your adult child just stormed out of a conversation again. Maybe you tried to offer advice and were met with anger, sarcasm, or silence. You meant well, but somehow things keep boiling over, and it's wearing on your heart. You're not alone. So many parents over 60 quietly carry the weight of these moments, unsure whether to step in, stay quiet, or simply walk away. And let's be honest, parenting doesn't end when your child turns 18. It just changes. You're still a parent, still wanting to help, to guide, to support. But the tools that worked when they were 5 don't quite translate now that they're 40. Especially when they're angry. And especially when that anger seems constant, misdirected, or explosive. That's why we're here today to talk about something both simple and powerful. How you, as a parent over 60, can still help your adult children manage their anger. Not by fixing everything, not by stepping into every argument, but by becoming the calm in their storm, the anchor in their chaos. Because whether they admit it or not, your presence still matters. Your example still speaks volumes, and you have more influence than you may think. Let's start with something foundational. You already know that anger is a part of life. Everyone feels it, especially when life throws curveballs. And let's face it, your children have probably faced quite a few in recent years. Financial pressure, relationship challenges, raising their own kids, or simply the stress of trying to live up to expectations, including maybe yours. Sometimes that anger spills over in ways that are loud, sharp, or even cruel. And that hurts. But here's the truth that no one tells you loud enough. Your calm is more powerful than their chaos. That brings us to the first thing you can do. It's simple, but it's not always easy. Stay calm. Not passive, not silent, but calm. When your adult child is yelling or venting or throwing emotional daggers, the most healing thing you can do is keep your tone low and your breath steady. That doesn't mean you agree with their behavior. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're choosing peace over reaction, and that's strength. Picture this. Your daughter calls in tears after another fight with her spouse. She's angry, blaming everyone, maybe even you. You feel the urge to defend yourself, to correct her version of the story. But what if you didn't? What if you simply said, "I hear you"? That sounds incredibly frustrating. Then paused. Let it breathe. Let her know she's not alone. That little moment. Your calm response can be a mirror showing her another way to handle those strong feelings. The thing about anger is it often hides something else. Disappointment, grief, shame. And when someone feels safe enough not to be met with judgment, those deeper emotions can come to the surface. That's when healing starts. So by staying calm, you give them permission to soften, to think, to reflect. Not every time, not instantly. But over time, your calm teaches them to pause too. Now let's talk about something else that might surprise you. Modeling emotional awareness. You may think your children have already learned how to handle their emotions. After all, they're adults. But just because someone is older doesn't mean they were ever taught how to express anger in a healthy way. And let's be honest, many of us weren't taught that growing up either. We were told to suppress it, avoid it, or worse, explode and move on without ever repairing the damage. But you can change the narrative in your family. You can be the one who shows what emotional honesty looks like, even now, and you don't have to do it perfectly. In fact, sometimes it's even more powerful when you acknowledge your own emotional learning process. Imagine saying to your son, "I used to bottle up a lot of my frustration when I was younger. I didn't always know how to say what I was feeling without blowing up. I'm still learning." That kind of statement, it's not weakness, it's leadership. Sharing your experience creates space for their growth. It sends the message that it's okay to have strong feelings, but it's also okay to learn how to manage them differently. You become a mentor without preaching, a guide without pressure. One of the most powerful things you can do is simply name emotions out loud. When your adult child is angry, you might gently offer, "It seems like you're feeling really hurt right now." Or, "You sound disappointed. Do you want to talk about that?" These small emotional cues help them put words to what's going on beneath the surface, and that reduces the intensity of the anger. Because anger, when named and understood, loses its grip. So many adult children were never given the language of emotion. And if you give it to them now, even in your 70s, it still matters. It still helps. Let me share a little story with you. A woman in her mid-60s told me recently that her son, now 35, would often yell during arguments. She used to yell back. But one day, after watching a video just like this, she tried something different. She waited until he paused. And then, in a soft voice, she said, "I don't know exactly what you're feeling, but I love you. I want to understand." He didn't answer right away, but the yelling stopped. And that night he called back and said, "I don't know why I always get so angry, but thanks for not yelling back." That's the power you still hold as a parent. The power to model calm. The power to speak the language of empathy. The power to be the safe place your adult child may have never had, even when they were younger. And here's something else to keep in mind. Your adult child's anger is not your fault. It's not always your responsibility to fix it. But if you choose to, you can still be a guide. You can still bring light into their darkness, not by force, but by being steady, kind, and wise. That doesn't mean letting yourself be mistreated. It means standing in your peace while offering another way. So when you feel tempted to raise your voice to cut them off, or to lecture them out of frustration, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is what I'm about to say going to help them feel safe enough to grow? If not, wait. Let your calm do the work first. We're not here to perfect our children. We're here to love them, to reflect strength when they feel weak, and to give them tools we might not have had when we were their age. And remember this, your example, even now, might just be the thing that changes everything for them. Now, there's something deeply humbling about realizing that even in our older years, after decades of life, raising children, surviving loss, building careers, we're still learning, still growing. And that includes learning how to stay connected to our adult kids when they're angry, distant, or in pain. But that's also part of the beauty of getting older. You've lived enough life to know that most storms do pass. You've seen how emotions rise and fall, how time softens even the sharpest edges. And that wisdom? It's a gift you can pass on to your kids, even if they don't know how to ask for it. One of the most effective ways to offer that gift is by helping them feel emotionally safe. That brings us to the next strategy. Encourage healthy communication, not just in how you speak to them, but in how you invite them to speak to you. When your adult child is in the middle of an emotional outburst, it's easy to respond with logic or correction. But logic rarely works when someone is in a state of emotional overwhelm. What they need first is connection, not correction. Here's what that can look like. Say your adult son calls, venting about a coworker or a partner. He's angry, using strong language, pacing around the room, or maybe slamming things. Your first instinct might be to calm him down or explain why he shouldn't be so upset. But take a moment. Instead of jumping in with advice, try something simple. "I can tell this has really thrown you. Want to talk it out?" That one sentence can shift everything. It lets him know you're listening, not judging, that you're there, but you're not there to fix. You're just holding space. And holding space is one of the most loving things you can do for someone who's angry. It doesn't mean you agree, it means you're creating a little emotional room for them to find their way back to balance. Because here's the truth, people, your kids included, are far more likely to reflect on their anger once they feel heard. And when that moment comes, when they're ready to speak, not shout, you can gently model what healthy communication looks like. One of the simplest and most powerful tools is using calm, respectful phrases like, "Let's figure this out together," or, "When you're ready, I'd love to hear more about how you're feeling." These aren't just nice words. They're a map out of the emotional maze they're stuck in, a way back to clarity and connection. A woman I spoke to once told me something remarkable. Her daughter, in her early 40s, was going through a difficult divorce. Every call home was full of tension and blame. But the mother, who was in her late 60s, decided not to argue, not to challenge. She said, "I just kept saying I'm here for you." Over time, the tone changed. The anger softened, and eventually, the daughter admitted she just didn't know where else to go with all the pain. She was angry at the world, not her mom. She just didn't have the words to say it. But being met with patience helped her find them. That's what you can do too. Not by solving the problem, but by being the steady place where your adult kids can start to sort it out. Now, let's talk about what comes next. Because once the anger cools, once your child has started to open up or settle down, they're often left wondering, now what? This is where your guidance becomes incredibly valuable. And this is the fourth strategy: introducing appropriate alternatives. Helping your adult child find better ways to cope with anger doesn't mean lecturing or laying down rules. It means planting little seeds of possibility. You might say something like, "I've learned over the years that going for a walk when I'm frustrated helps me think clearer." Or, "Sometimes when I get upset, I take 5 deep breaths before I respond. It helps me not say something I'll regret." These are not commands, they're invitations. And because they're rooted in your own experience, they don't feel threatening or controlling. They feel real. What you're doing here is offering your child a different way to handle their strong emotions, not by force, but by example. You're helping them shift from reaction to reflection, from chaos to clarity. And remember, alternatives don't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's as simple as encouraging them to write down their thoughts before they speak, or reminding them that it's okay to take a break from a heated conversation. You can even say, "If you ever want to talk something through with me when you're not upset, I'd love to be part of that." That kind of message stays with them, maybe not immediately, but over time it becomes a voice they remember when they're on the edge again. And don't forget, this emotional modeling isn't just helpful for them, it helps you too. Because staying calm, practicing empathy, and keeping communication open, it brings peace to your life as well. It lets you sleep a little easier at night, knowing that you did your part with love, not fear. That you showed up with compassion, even when they showed up with conflict. You've already lived through enough to know that being reactive rarely leads to connection. You've seen how powerful a pause can be, how healing a gentle word can become. And those skills? They're the exact skills your kids still need from you, yes, even now. Sometimes you may wonder if they even want your guidance. After all, they're adults, independent, grown. But underneath all that independence is still your child, the one who once looked to you for comfort, for answers, for safety. They may not say it, but part of them still needs to know you're there, still watching, still loving, still willing to help them navigate the hard stuff. And let's be honest, anger is one of the hardest emotions to face, especially when it's tangled up in stress, disappointment, or shame. Especially when someone feels like they've failed or lost control. That's when your steady presence can feel like a lifeline. So be that anchor, not the fixer, not the lecturer, just the person who shows up with quiet strength and real understanding. And remember, you're not alone in this. So many parents over 60 are trying to figure out how to stay connected to adult kids who seem angry all the time. And you're doing the brave thing by learning, by showing up differently, by choosing love over control. You're not too old to make a difference. In fact, your age is your strength. You've been through enough storms to know they end. You've gained the kind of wisdom that doesn't need to shout to be heard. And you've learned that sometimes the softest voice carries the deepest truth. And if your child isn't quite ready to receive that truth yet, that's okay. Your job is not to force it. Your job is to stay grounded, to keep your door and your heart open, to offer what you've learned and then let go. That's where your peace lives, and that's where your influence truly begins. Now that we've explored how powerful your presence, empathy, and modeling can be, there's one last piece of this puzzle that holds everything together, and that's knowing when to ask for help. It might sound simple, but for many parents, especially those in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, asking for help can feel like admitting failure. But it's the opposite. Asking for help, whether it's for you or for your child, is actually a sign of deep wisdom and maturity. Think about it. You've made it through decades of challenges, figured out how to keep going, even when you didn't have the answers. But now, you might be facing something new. Watching your adult child struggle with anger, depression, or emotional distance, and feeling unsure of how to reach them. That's not failure. That's love calling you to grow again in a new way. There are times when your adult child's anger may be bigger than you can hold alone. Maybe they've experienced trauma, maybe they're struggling with substance abuse, mental health challenges, or unresolved grief. Maybe they're stuck in patterns that go back generations. In those moments, your steady presence matters. But so does guidance from someone who's trained to help. And that's where counselors, therapists, support groups, and even online resources come in, if your child is open to it. You might gently say, "Have you ever thought about talking to someone about this?" And if they resist, that's okay too. What matters is that you plant the seed without pressure. You can also lead by example. I've been learning more about how to support you, and I found a few things that are helping me understand anger better. If you ever want to check them out, I'd be happy to share. Sometimes that's all it takes. A small gesture that shows you're still growing too. And while we're on the subject of help, don't forget about yourself. Supporting an adult child through emotional struggles can be exhausting, especially when you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You may be carrying silent grief, resentment, even guilt, none of which you deserve to carry alone. Finding your own support system, whether it's a close friend, a faith group, a therapist, or even a few trusted voices online, can give you the strength to stay grounded without burning out. This is where your journey becomes something bigger, because as you learn how to help your child manage their anger, you may begin to heal parts of yourself too. Maybe no one ever taught you how to deal with strong emotions growing up. Maybe anger wasn't something you could talk about in your home. But now, in this chapter of your life, you get to do something truly powerful. Break old patterns with love. You may not have had the tools then, but you do now. You're learning how to meet anger with calm, frustration with compassion, silence with presence. You're becoming the parent you wish you'd had and offering your child the chance to become the person they're capable of being. And yes, it's hard. There will be moments when you feel like nothing you say or do makes a difference. When the anger flares up again and you wonder if you're just wasting your time, but you're not. Because every calm response, every loving boundary, every small act of patience is like water on a seed. You may not see it sprout today, but you're nurturing something deep and lasting. Something that just might grow into understanding, into trust, into peace. There's one last thing I want to remind you of, and it's this. You are not alone. Not in your worries, not in your hope, not in your longing to see your child find peace. So many parents feel like they have to carry this burden quietly, to protect their child's dignity, to shield others from the chaos. But there's a quiet strength in opening up, even just a little, sharing your story. Asking someone, "Have you ever gone through this with your kids?" You might be surprised how many nod yes. And if no one else has said this to you lately, let me say it now. You're doing a beautiful job. Not a perfect one, not a flashy one, but a deeply meaningful one. You're showing up, you're learning, you're loving through the hard moments, and that matters more than you know. Because parenting doesn't stop when your child moves out. It simply evolves. You become less of a director, more of a guide, less of a fixer, more of a mirror. And when you show up with compassion instead of criticism, with calm instead of control, you become the kind of parent every adult child still needs, even if they don't say it out loud. So hold your peace like a lantern. Let it light the way, even when the path is foggy. Trust that your love, steady and soft, still has power. And know that it's never too late to help your child grow, no matter how old they are or how much anger they carry. Now, if this message has touched something in you, if you've seen your own story in these words, I invite you to leave a comment below. You're not alone, and your voice could be the encouragement another parent needs to hear today. If this video helped you, go ahead and like it, share it with a friend, or subscribe to our channel, Strong Elderly Life. We're here to help you live your strongest, most peaceful years, one connection at a time. Because you matter. Your wisdom matters. And the love you offer, especially now, can still change everything. Here's to parenting with grace. And here's to living your best life, at any age.